There's something profound that happens when we look at ourselves in the mirror and feel completely disconnected from who we see looking back. It's that moment when you wonder if you're fundamentally flawed, if there's something inherently wrong with you that can't be fixed. This feeling of being broken isn't just sadness or temporary disappointment. It's a deep, persistent sense that you're damaged goods, that you're operating with missing pieces that everyone else seems to have. But what if I told you that this feeling, as real and overwhelming as it is actually your mind's way of protecting you from something much deeper? The truth is, when we feel broken, we're not experiencing our actual state of being, we're experiencing the aftermath of disconnection. Think about it like this. Imagine you're a tree that's been uprooted from its natural soil and placed in a pot that's too small. The tree isn't broken, it's simply not in the environment it needs to thrive. Your roots are cramped, your access to nutrients is limited, and you start to wither not because you're defective, but because you're not where you belong. This is what happens to us as human beings when we're disconnected from our authentic selves, our emotional needs, and our natural capacity for connection. When we examine the work of trauma specialists and addiction experts, we discover that what we interpret as being broken is often the result of adaptive strategies we developed early in life. These strategies were brilliant survival mechanisms that helped us navigate environments that couldn't meet our fundamental needs for safety, connection, and authentic expression. A child who learns to be hypervigilant isn't broken. They're demonstrating incredible intelligence by developing a system to protect themselves from unpredictable danger. The problem arises when these protective mechanisms become our default way of being long after the original threat has passed. Consider how we develop our sense of self in relationship to others. From the moment we're born, we're constantly reading the emotional climate around us and adjusting our behavior accordingly. If expressing our true feelings results in rejection, abandonment, or anger from our caregivers, we learn to suppress those feelings. If being spontaneous and joyful gets us criticized or shut down, we learn to contain our natural exuberance. These aren't conscious choices. They're automatic adaptations that happen below the level of awareness, designed to maintain the connection we need to survive. The feeling of being broken often stems from a profound split between who we really are and who we had to become to feel safe and accepted. This split creates what we might call a false self, a version of ourselves that's designed to meet external expectations while our true self remains empty, unexpressed, and eventually forgotten. We become so skilled at being this acceptable version of ourselves that we lose touch with our authentic desires, emotions, and needs. We start to believe that this constructed self is who we really are, and when it feels empty or unfulfilling, we conclude that we must be fundamentally flawed.
But here's what's crucial to understand. The capacity for healing and wholeness isn't something you need to acquire from outside yourself. It's already within you, waiting to be uncovered and expressed. Think of it like an archaeological dig. You're not building something new. You're carefully removing the layers of protective strategies and false beliefs that have covered your true self. Each layer you remove reveals more of who you've always been underneath the adaptations. The process of reconnecting with your authentic self requires tremendous compassion because you're essentially learning to trust parts of yourself that you've been taught are dangerous or unacceptable. It's like learning to use a limb that's been in a cast for years. It feels weak and unfamiliar at first, but with gentle, consistent practice, it regains its strength and natural function. Your emotional authenticity, your ability to set boundaries, your capacity for joy and spontaneity, these aren't skills you need to develop from scratch. They're natural abilities that have been suppressed and need to be gradually reawakened. One of the most important realizations in this process is understanding that your nervous system has been shaped by your experiences, not your character. When you feel anxious, hypervigilant, or emotionally numb, you're not experiencing personal failings. You're experiencing the natural responses of a nervous system that has adapted to protect you from perceived threats. Your body and mind are doing exactly what they're designed to do based on the information they've received about the world. This isn't a defect. It's evidence of your system's incredible capacity to adapt and survive. The challenge is that these protective adaptations often outlive their usefulness. The hypervigilance that once kept you safe in an unpredictable household now makes it difficult to relax in safe relationships. The emotional numbness that protected you from overwhelming pain now makes it hard to feel joy and connection. The people-pleasing that ensured you wouldn't be abandoned now prevents you from forming authentic relationships. These strategies aren't broken, they're simply being applied in contexts where they're no longer necessary or helpful. This is why healing isn't about fixing what's wrong with you. It's about creating the safety and conditions necessary for your natural state of wholeness to emerge. It's like tending a garden that's been neglected. You don't need to force the plants to grow. You need to provide the right soil, water, and light, and trust in their inherent capacity to flourish. Your emotional healing follows the same principle. When you create the right internal conditions, your natural capacity for joy, connection, and authentic expression begins to emerge organically.
The feeling of being broken often intensifies when we compare our internal experience to what we imagine others are experiencing. We see people who seem confident, happy, and well-adjusted, and we assume they possess something we lack. But what we're really seeing is people who have had different experiences that allowed them to maintain more connection to their authentic selves, or who have done the work to reclaim that connection. They're not fundamentally different from you. They've simply had different circumstances or have been further along in their own healing journey. Understanding this can be both liberating and challenging. It's liberating because it means you're not defective or irreparably damaged. It's challenging because it requires you to grieve the childhood you didn't have, the safety you didn't experience, and the authentic expression you had to sacrifice for survival. This grief is not a sign that you're broken. It's a sign that you're waking up to what you've always deserved and are now ready to reclaim. Have you ever noticed how certain environments or relationships make you feel more like yourself than others? Perhaps you feel most authentic when you're in nature, or when you're with a particular friend who accepts you completely, or when you're engaged in a creative activity that flows naturally. These moments aren't accidents. They're glimpses of your true self emerging when the conditions are right. They're evidence that your authentic self isn't lost or damaged. It's simply waiting for the right environment to express itself fully. Thank you for clicking on this video and taking the time to explore these ideas with me. You're here on the Not What It Seems channel, where we dive deep into the psychology of human experience every day. This is a space for genuine exploration and understanding, where we look beyond surface explanations to discover the deeper truths about why we feel and behave the way we do. Now, as we continue exploring this topic, I want to ask you something important. When you think about the times in your life when you felt most broken, can you identify what was happening in your relationships or environment during those periods? Were you isolated, unsupported, or forced to suppress important aspects of yourself? If you feel comfortable sharing, I'd love to hear about your experiences in the comments below. Your story might help someone else feel less alone in their own journey.
The answer to this question often reveals that our deepest feelings of brokenness coincide with periods of disconnection from others, from our authentic selves, or from environments that support our natural way of being. This isn't a coincidence. We're relational beings wired for connection and authentic expression. When these fundamental needs aren't met, we naturally begin to feel fragmented and lost. But this feeling is pointing us toward what we need, not confirming what we lack. One of the most powerful shifts in understanding comes when we realize that our sensitivity, our depth of feeling, and even our struggles are not weaknesses to be overcome. They're often indicators of our greatest strengths. The person who feels deeply is often the person with the greatest capacity for empathy and connection. The person who struggles with anxiety might be someone with exceptional awareness and intuition. The person who has difficulty trusting might be someone who has learned to read situations with remarkable accuracy. These aren't character flaws. They're evidence of a system that's been finely tuned by experience. What we call healing is really a process of integration, bringing together the different parts of ourselves that have been separated by trauma, survival needs, or societal expectations. It's like reassembling a puzzle where the pieces have been scattered in different rooms. Each piece is perfect and necessary. They just need to be brought back together in the right configuration. Your anger, your sadness, your joy, your creativity, your need for connection, these aren't separate elements to be managed or fixed. They're all aspects of your whole self that need to be welcomed back into conscious awareness. This integration process requires patience because you're essentially learning to trust yourself again. You're learning to trust your emotions as valid information rather than dangerous experiences to be avoided. You're learning to trust your boundaries as necessary protections rather than selfish barriers. You're learning to trust your desires as legitimate guides rather than shameful impulses. This isn't easy work, especially if you've spent years being taught to distrust these fundamental aspects of yourself. But here's what makes this process possible. Your body and mind have an innate wisdom that knows how to heal when given the right conditions. Just as a cut knows how to close and a broken bone knows how to mend, your psychological and emotional wounds have a natural healing intelligence. Your job isn't to force this healing or to figure out every step of the process. Your job is to create the safety, support, and self-compassion necessary for your natural healing capacity to do its work.
The feeling of being broken often comes with a sense of urgency, a belief that you need to fix yourself quickly before you lose more time, more opportunities, or more relationships. But healing happens on its own timeline, and rushing the process often creates more fragmentation rather than integration. It's like trying to force a flower to bloom by pulling its petals open. You end up damaging the very thing you're trying to help flourish. True healing requires the patience to allow your natural processes to unfold at their own pace. This doesn't mean being passive or avoiding the work of healing. It means engaging with the process in a way that honors your nervous system's need for safety and gradual change. It means recognizing that setbacks and difficult periods aren't signs of failure. They're natural parts of a process that involves reorganizing patterns that have been in place for years or even decades. Every step forward, no matter how small, is evidence of your innate capacity for growth and healing. One of the most transformative realizations in this journey is understanding that you don't need to become someone different to be whole. You need to become more fully yourself, the self that existed before you learned to hide, please, or protect in ways that separated you from your authentic experience. This original self isn't naive or unprotected. It's simply more integrated and able to respond to life from a place of wholeness rather than fragmentation. The path back to this wholeness isn't about returning to some idealized past version of yourself. It's about integrating all of your experiences, the painful and the joyful, the protective and the open, the wounded and the healed, into a more complete understanding of who you are. Your struggles become part of your strength. Your sensitivity becomes part of your wisdom, and your capacity for healing becomes evidence of your fundamental resilience. As we near the end of our exploration today, I want to leave you with a powerful reflection. What if the very things that make you feel broken are actually the cracks through which your authentic self is trying to emerge? What if your struggles are not evidence of damage, but indicators of growth trying to happen? What if the discomfort you feel when you're not being authentic is actually your inner wisdom guiding you back to yourself?
The Japanese art of kintsugi teaches us that broken pottery can be repaired with gold, making it more beautiful than it was before it was broken. The breaks become part of the piece's history and strength, not something to hide or be ashamed of. This is a profound metaphor for human healing. We don't heal by pretending our wounds never happened or by trying to return to some unmarked state. We heal by integrating our experiences in a way that makes us more whole, more compassionate, and more authentically ourselves. Your journey of healing is unique to you, shaped by your particular experiences, strengths, and challenges, but the destination is the same for all of us, a return to the wholeness that is your birthright, the authentic self that has been waiting patiently beneath all the protective layers you've had to develop. This self isn't broken and never was. It's simply been waiting for the right conditions to emerge and express itself fully in the world. Remember that feeling broken is not a permanent state. It's a temporary experience that points you toward what needs attention and care. It's your psyche's way of saying that something important is ready to be healed, integrated, or expressed. Trust this process. Be patient with yourself, and remember that every step you take toward authenticity is a step toward the wholeness that has always been yours. Thank you for joining me on this exploration today. If this content resonated with you and helped you see yourself in a new light, I'd be grateful if you'd give it a like. Your engagement helps these ideas reach others who might need to hear them. I'd also love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if you're drawn to continue this journey of understanding and healing, consider subscribing to the Not What It Seems channel, where we explore these deeper truths about human experience every day. There's another video appearing on your screen right now that continues this exploration, and I hope you'll join me there if you feel called to dig even deeper into these important insights about your inherent wholeness and capacity for healing.